In the last episode, things were going really great at the New Jersey Motorsports complex in our last race. Car was running strong till the engine blew and we caught the car on fire. So with the car back at Arrington Performance, and once I got on the rack, we pretty much found out what had happened as far as 2 gaping holes in the engine block and 1 in the oil pan. Hence all the oil getting onto the header, igniting on fire, going underneath the car, and catching the fuel lines on fire. Luckily, the safety crew was there to put everything out, and it saved the car. But we wanted to track down the problem as far as what caused the engine issue.
Trying to repair all the carnage that we had at New Jersey Motorsports Park. We're getting ready to drop the motor out of the bottom of the car. Just going around making sure I got all of the hoses, lines, wires, etc. disconnected. And we're going to get it out of the car and see what we can find.
The crew at Arrington's pulled the engine, and once they removed the oil pan, it was pretty evident as far as what happened. When running a car on a road course, the engine's going to stay at a high RPM range. So oil, as far as how it's plumbed and how it operates inside the engine, is very important. When you're in that high RPM range, your oil goes to your heads and it can deplete the oil pan, and that's what we ran into with this powertrain setup. All the oil went up into the heads and the crank starved of oil. It got real hot, melting a rod bearing to the crank, and when that melted, it fused together, snapped the rod, everything grenaded inside the bottom end, put the holes in the engine block and the oil pan. So we found the solution of what happened, and that's the starting point there. So we know what happened to the engine, and now we know the steps to take to fix it. One of the solutions to solve the oil starvation under high RPM road course racing is to install an oil AccuSump kit. Well, Canton Racing makes actually a 2-quart oil system there that when you're racing at high RPM, you engage the pump and it will actually fill the oil pan with an extra 2 quarts of oil. So you've got plenty of oil in there and you don't get a hot scenario with the crank. And then when the RPMs die back down, you pull the car off the road course, or you're doing regular street driving, you shut it off and it pulls the 2 quarts in and you can drive around the street. So that's our solution as far as to solve the oil issue. So we had a couple options here. We could go back with the 5.7, which is a 345 cubic inch, and do everything we had done before and just install the AccuSump kit. But since we're going to need a new block, we're going to need new pistons and new rods and new crank, this is a perfect time to upgrade. There's a couple different options here. You could go to a 392 setup in this, but Arrington actually specializes in a 426 cubic inch modern Hemi long block. They do from forged pistons to manly rods and crank assembly, everything forged, and they have been doing this setup for several years, and it's a strong platform to build off of. So if we're going to be sitting there putting a new block in, why not put in a 426?
Okay, so this is a Arrington built 426, and we build a lot of these engines. We use all forged components, all of the right stuff in the bottom end. Everything's balanced, all the clearances are set, foul fit rings, all of the best stuff, just like you were building a NASCAR engine, is the way you have to do one of these to get dependability out of it. A lot of people get confused about horsepower. In a naturally aspirated form, depending on the camshaft we run in this and what we did with compression, these things regularly make in the 600 horsepower range. That's a pretty standard number for a naturally aspirated 426. You can make some more, add some more cam, a little more compression. There's always the trade-offs in what you do with fuel and what happens if you get a bad tank of gas if you're driving the thing daily or trying to drive it across country to an event. So, but those are kind of the ranges they make. You can make 700 or more if that's your goal. You just got to sacrifice some of that street drivability to get there. In the supercharged applications, this engine regularly we make well north of 1,000 horsepower with it in a very aggressive kind of application. That's not what this is. This is designed to support and to run autocrosses, to run road courses, those kinds of things. So we don't necessarily need that max performance number. And we'd rather trade a little bit of that max performance off for the reliability and dependability and basically the kind of not even think about opening the hood when you're at an event attitude. So this engine in this application is going to make round numbers 700-ish on the tires where we're going to put it at. And it'll deliver close to that same kind of torque It's going to be a more flat torque curve, not going to be peaky like you see with some applications when you spin the superchargers really hard.
So with the 426, why not upgrade the heads as well to the 6.4 liter with a little special treatment from Arrington Performance. You can see all their parts at shophemi.com, and you can see what they actually do to these heads. They do port and polish, all new springs and guides and everything in there, so they're really built to handle power. Plus, we called our friends at Comp Cams, and they did a custom ground cam setup to Arrington specs for this particular engine. So with everything we've done to the car, it was time to put the power plan into the car. They had built the 426, got everything wired up, and we put a new 2300 Magnuson on their setup for a 6.4 liter, which will put out plenty of boost. It's capable of 10 to 12 pounds of boost out there, and it's a very reliable supercharger setup for just about any car out there, not just Mopars, for Ford and Chevy, and even Toyota trucks, Ram trucks. They make a plethora of superchargers applications out there. So on top of the powertrain failure we had, and now we're going to sit there and do a new 426, we also have to fix everything else that was damaged by the fire. That means anything that has a plastic connection, any electrical system, any fuel system that has wear or tear on it or anything like that has got to be ripped out and fully replaced. Then including the gas tank actually was melted in a certain section. Thank God it didn't break through to the gas tank, but that whole thing has to be replaced. We're talking fuel pump, fuel lines, gas tank, vapor collector, brake lines, boots on the axles. All those things had to be fully torn apart and replaced.
For over 40 years, Arrington has meant race-winning power. Today, Arrington powers the streets at shophemi.com. We design, engineer, and manufacture with just one goal: Hemi performance. Proven power for the street. See it at shophemi.com.
So some of the other things that didn't like the fire damage from New Jersey is the exterior graphics and the wrap that we put on there. The wrap has held up very well over the course of the year from rock chips and everything else, but when you throw all that heat and flame and smoke at it, it's just not going to survive. So with the car going to SEMA, it's got to look like pristine, and the only way to do it right is to peel the whole car and redo everything so it all looks nice and fresh for the SEMA show. So one of the cool things about a spray-on liquid wrap setup on your car is when you peel it off, the paint is just as shiny and new as when you bought the car. It really protects the car's finish, especially for something like we do with road course racing. Now, to actually strip the car, it only took about 2 to 3 hours to peel everything off, graphics and the liquid wrap. Now, to prep the car, it takes a little bit longer to redo that wrap. You first have to prep the car, make sure all your grease and contaminants are off the paint, tape everything off, and then basically you're laying layer after layer, just kind of like a paint job. But you don't have to do any sanding or prepping or clearing or anything like that. You start off with a gray base, you move on to your white finish, the exterior color you want, and then you can tape off any designs you like, and we're going back with that ACR look with the center black stripe and then the gloss red stripe offset. So with the car going to SEMA, we've got to pay attention to some details that we normally wouldn't address, because it's got a roll cage in it. Nobody can really get in the back seats, but because the car is going to be on display in the Motive Wheels booth, we wanted to pay attention to those little details. So we had the rear seats covered in a nice matching pattern to the racing seats that we run from Cypher Auto. So with the car being in the Motive Wheels booth at SEMA, we really want to do something special with the wheels. And the wheels get really beat up on the track. Our typical track wheels, you're going to see rock chips. We're taking them off. before putting them on. So, you know, always constantly using an impact, you know, hitting it with the lugs and everything else. They get run ragged pretty well. But for SEMA, we got to make sure we have a nice set of wheels. So we took one of the sets from Motive Wheels and we sent it to a painter at Carolina Auto Concepts. And we told him, like, listen, the car's it's really white, but it's got a lot of black and red in it. I said, we want to keep the wheels black, but we want to put a splash of color. So they ended up doing a red barrel on the inside of the wheel, and I have to say, it's going to look really killer once they're put on the car. So with SEMA literally just 2 weeks away, the car actually has to leave about 4 days before SEMA. It has to arrive on Sunday in order to be put into the Motive Wheels booth. So we're getting down to crunch time. The new power plant's in, the car's been on the dyno. Now we have to bolt on the new wheels and tires that we had painted. We've got to do the exterior wrap and respray it. We got to add all the sponsor decals because we love our sponsors and we show support for them all year long. And we got to make sure all their logos look nice and presented well on the car. We don't need a display board for this car. So many people go to a car show or go to these shows and they look for these little display board. The whole car is a display board, and it's really a testament to all the companies that we've teamed up with for the year. Any company that's been involved with this car, you know their products have been beaten up, have been pushed to its limits, and that we've worked with that company. So if there has been an issue, whether a fitment or anything else, they've got feedback from us, they fixed the issue, and I guarantee they've made the product better and stronger than what it was before. So it is the day of, meaning we are scheduled to load this car at 6 o'clock tonight onto the hauler to get it to Las Vegas and SEMA. So with replacing the wheels and tires and friction rings and the engine and everything there, the last step here is to get an alignment on the car. We actually took a test drive and the car felt really loose because everything was kind of out of whack from replacing the engine because you have to pull the whole cradle down from the car. So our next stop is the alignment rack, and then we're going to be loading it up on the trailer and it's heading to Vegas. So if you followed our webisodes over the course of the year, you've seen we've had a pretty wild time. We've visited some automotive manufacturers that make some great products. We've taken the car to the track in the Ultimate Street Car Series and really beaten it up and just had a blast doing that. Now the car's heading to SEMA. We literally just finished loading it into the trailer and it's on its way to Las Vegas. So if you're gonna be at the SEMA show, be sure to stop by the Motive Wheels booth. That's where the car is gonna be on display. We'll be in and out periodically from time to time, but hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, message us. We'd love to meet up with you at the car, love to talk to you, let you take a look at it, and answer any questions you have there. And if you can't make SEMA, don't worry about it. We're going to give you an inside look because me and my production crew are going to be out there and we're going to be filming everything as far as what's excitement. We're going to be visiting companies' booths and checking out some really awesome rides at SEMA. And we'll have that as a 2-part webisode special that you'll be able to watch in November and later December. So we always love posting things on Facebook and Instagram, and you can kind of get a sneak peek before it actually makes it into a webisode. So be sure to follow us on our Facebook page and Instagram.